No-hit challenges are done in a ton of different games, but most commonly in Souls-like games such as Elden Ring. In Elden Ring, enemies tend to have very distinct periods of attacking and not attacking, and given that you have a dodge that makes you invulnerable, allows you to completely avoid any and all damage if you time your dodges well enough. The combat is also generally pretty isolated and controlled, with most boss fights having just one enemy to deal with, the boss. But what about no-hit runs in Destiny, where there are always tons of enemies shooting at you without this dodge mechanic to bail you out? Well, it's actually been done before. Riley Reloaded has completed multiple campaigns without taking damage. But what about a dungeon? Dungeons generally have mechanics that restrict your ability to just play really safe. Common examples being timers and having to interact in precarious places. So I wanted to see if it was even possible. So with that, here's how I attempted to solo a dungeon in Destiny 2 without ever taking damage. And if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll do this again in a different dungeon. First, let's go over the dungeon and rules for the challenge. For the dungeon I picked, you guessed it, Shattered Throne. If this challenge was even possible, I'd have the best chances of doing it on the easiest dungeon. So picking Shattered Throne was a no-brainer. In terms of the rules, it's pretty simple. If my health bar goes down, even by a pixel, I have to restart the dungeon from the very beginning. That means if I get to the final boss, get it down to 1 HP and accidentally take full damage, yeah, that's a reset. And yes, I said full damage. A lot of people asked during the challenge why I didn't make an exception for full damage, and in hindsight I probably should have, but it made for some pretty funny moments. Oh, that's crazy. Oh. Oh my god. Bro. No, we can't be serious, dude. Dude. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't this challenge easy? Don't you just sit really far away and slowly clear out all of the enemies with a scout rifle? And you wouldn't be completely wrong, but there's one problem. The bosses. The issue with the bosses, especially for the final boss, is that the rooms are pretty contained, enough that you can't just outrange the enemies. Additionally, the Petitioner's Mark mechanic meant I had to get up close and personal to be able to damage the bosses, even if we ignored all of the ads as a factor. As for the rest of the dungeon, it is more or less plinking away at enemies from range, but a lot of the challenge was actually figuring out how to get through these sections super quickly so I could have more frequent attempts at the bosses. The last thing we need to talk about for this challenge is our loadout. For their zero damage Lightfall campaign, Riley uses Titan's ramparts on Titan to block incoming damage with the barricade while still being able to return fire. For this challenge, I wanted to try using Invis Hunter instead. With Graviton Forfeit and maxed out mobility and strength, I was able to have effectively 100% Invis uptime, which I figured would be perfect for the challenge. In terms of weapons, exotic primaries like Polaris Lance and Graviton Lance would definitely be great with their range and AoE capabilities, but I opted to use Dragon's Breath with a legendary Scout and Sniper Rifle instead. Dragon's Breath is perfect for a challenge like this. With its set and forget capabilities, you just shoot one rocket at a mini boss or group of ads, go invis, and then watch as all of the enemies get completely obliterated. It's also great for when you don't have direct line of sight to the enemies that you're trying to clear out. I tried Gallahorn for this as well, because wolf packs are awesome for clearing out enemies that you can't see, but one galley shot did less than a third of each mini boss's health in the entrance. So I went for Dragon's Breath, which basically one-shots every mini-boss if you hit them directly. With that all out of the way, let's get into the entrance of the dungeon. For the entrance of the dungeon, most of the enemies you have to clear out are contained in rooms, where it's pretty hard to get long-range angles without just sitting and waiting for them to walk past the doorways. Because of this, I wanted to see how aggressive I could play without getting caught, and it went about how you'd expect. I might be dead. Oh. Oh! Dude. 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 It's so fucking over, bro. I'm off the map. Oh. 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 How do I get... Oh, shit! How do I get back on the map? Okay, this is a Stompy's angle, I think. But he thinks this is a Stompy's angle. Oh no, I'm dead. No! Fuck! Shit! The other problem when doing this was I had to be acutely aware of the sniper hobgoblins that spawned all over the outskirts of the map. But this gave me an idea. What if I became the snipers on the outskirts of the map? That's when I discovered the power of the roof. All but one of the areas you need to clear out for the entrance are completely visible at range from the roof, making it the best place to be while trying to avoid getting hit. The other crazy thing about using the roof is that the sniper hobgoblins only spawn in if you walk around the entrance normally. So if you traverse the roof properly, you never have to worry about a single sniper. With the roof strat, clearing out the rooms with Dragon's Breath and cleaning up any stragglers with my scout and sniper was super easy, and I was able to clear the entrance for the first time on my 5th attempt. It's entrance done. GG's believers. GG's believers. On the way to the Ogre, this captain is the only enemy you have to kill in order to progress. So for the majority of this transition, I'll be abusing Graviton Forfeit to chain my Smoke Bomb and Dodge to be permanently invisible as we talked about before. Running through and ignoring all of the enemies instead of meticulously clearing them out will save us a lot of time in the long run. For the section right after entrance with this compulsory mini-boss, I tried to carefully clear out almost every enemy, taking extra care with the Sniper Vandals. I would classify them all like... Once I've cleared out enough of the enemies, I sneak up here, shoot one Dragon's Breath, and throw a grenade, quickly dodging to go invis and jumping down to be extra sure I don't take damage. I had a few deaths in this section trying to play it too fast, but for the most part it was pretty straightforward. Running down this hallway is scary, especially since when you throw your smoke bomb or use quickfall, there's a brief period where you're visible to enemies. We'll talk more about that later. This led to a couple deaths in this part, but as long as I strafed as soon as I went invis, I was generally okay. The first time I reached the Thrallway, my plan was to use Tether to allow me to clear out a bunch of thralls so I could generate some heavy ammo, while the Tether suppressed them so they had no chance of ever hitting me. This is before I realized that Shadow Thrall can actually follow you while you're invis, leading to this. Nah, dude. It's over. This was super demoralizing and also had me pretty worried. I figured since the Thrall could track me while invis, using Quickfall would always put me at risk of taking damage. When I use Quickfall, I'm visible for a short amount of time, giving the Thrall a window to swipe me before dying to the damage portion of the Quickfall. This was fortunately not the case, with Quickfall absolutely obliterating the Thrall before they could react, so the Thrallway was pretty chill. I was a bit concerned since initially I was going to abuse the infinite ad spawns of the Thrallway to generate ammo, but a few runs in, I realized that with the ads I have to clear to progress, as well as the phalanxes after the Thrallway, I never had any ammo issues. After Thrallway, there's this wall with a few boob things that I had to learn how to dodge. After that, I clear out all the enemies with my scout to avoid taking random damage, also generating heavy ammo for the Ogre, as we talked about before. Now for the Ogre. This is definitely the hardest part of the whole run, but thanks to someone from my community, which you can join by the way, we have a Discord server with heaps of super friendly people in it, so if you're a Destiny player or just like cool challenges, we'd love to have you. Anyway, Maddie actually cleared the Ogre without taking damage a day or two after I announced, on the Discord, that I was doing this challenge. The strategy Maddie used was pretty simple on paper. Quickfall to go invis, line up a Dragon's Breath shot on one of the wizards, fire the rocket, and immediately dodge to go invis again. Wait until invis is about to expire, quickfall again, and then rinse and repeat until all the wizards are dead and you can start damage. This seems pretty simple, but is much harder to pull off than it sounds. Since activating your smoke or quickfall will briefly make you visible, and firing Dragon's Breath also makes you visible, any and all enemies in the arena will shoot at you anytime you're reapplying invis. This is generally okay when dodging, since the dodge itself will reposition you, so the enemies will shoot where you used to be and not where you are at the end of the dodge. Oh yeah. But when using Quickfall, it locks you in an animation, so if you do it in the wrong spot, you're almost guaranteed to take a hit from either the boss or one of the snipers. If you use the regular smoke bomb instead of quickfall, you still risk taking a hit, but the risk is not as high since you aren't locked in an animation. However, the invis doesn't last as long, so you won't have as much wriggle room when actually shooting the wizards. This problem of enemies shooting you when you come out of invis is an issue throughout the entire dungeon, but was most prevalent here. Dude! No, dude! The wizards themselves are very sporadic and fly around randomly, making it hard to hit them with Dragon's Breath. If you move closer to them, it's easier to guarantee a hit, but this also means getting closer to the enemies, so when you drop invis, there's a higher chance that they'll tag you. The other issue with getting up close is that you can accidentally hit yourself with your own Dragon's Breath. It took a couple of attempts to get consistent at this part of the encounter, but the part I did not expect to take me so long to get consistent at was the damage phase. This boss has no health, so I barely practiced the actual damage phase, because in my head, just Dragon's Breath him, tether, go invisible to avoid the action darts, and he dies, right? Well, he's a bit more health than that. Because I wasn't really used to the action dart timings, I straight up just failed to hit the damage check a bunch of times. Also, if you use invis during damage, it sends the action darts off to Narnia, but when you become visible again, they'll come at you from all over the place, making it practically impossible to avoid getting hit. Normally, I'd figure all of these things out in practice, but since I figured the boss would just fall over, I didn't really practice the boss at all, so I lost a lot of attempts where I probably shouldn't have, failing to one-phase this boss. No, man. Oh my god, man. After way too many Ogre wipes, I finally got down the timings for the action darts, and on run 51, I toppled my greatest hurdle in this challenge. Come on, man! And it was on to the final boss. Dude! Yeah. In terms of getting from the Ogre to the final boss, there really isn't much new going on here, other than a stompy swap at the secret chest to avoid my arch enemy, the Boop Wall 2. Okay, well, now we're actually at the final boss, let's talk about my strat going in. The strat was simple. After the Ogre, swap to Parasite and stack up Worm's Hunger during the transition. When I get to the wizard, tether the 3 knights and Parasite to kill all 3 of them instantly. Now just play carefully with invis to clear out all the scions. This should be easy since they should naturally run into the tether, suppressing them so they aren't a threat. Once the scions are gone, pick up the buffs, swap to Whisper, then shoot the boss behind a head glitch. Done. Easy. At least, that was the theory. You see, there were 2 major problems with this strat. I knew Parasite with tether would easily take out the knights, and I knew Whisper would do more than enough to kill the boss, even without my super. But clearing out the scions was scary. This room is super small, and the closer you are to enemies, the higher the chances are of them hitting you when you go in and out of invis. This meant that whatever scions didn't walk into my tether would pose a huge threat whenever I went out of invis to shoot them. This is why I initially wanted to stay at the back of the room. The back of the room was super good for dealing with the scions, since any that came into my line of sight would almost always be within the range of the tether, meaning that they couldn't shoot back. The issue with this is that the boss has perfect line of sight to this part of the room, so anytime I came out of invis to deal with the scions, I could generally avoid their fire, but I would have to be super careful of the boss's attacks. Here comes the other issue with this strategy, or rather, the boss in general. Since I was using my super and Parasite to deal with the knights, there was no real way for me to practice the boss. Let me explain. Since there's no rally banner, I would have to wipe a few times to generate my super before each actual attempt, and after that, I didn't really have a good way of one-shotting the knights since I can't get Worm's Hunger stacks, they reset when you die. That meant I really didn't have a good way to practice any strats on the boss. I just had to theorize a good way to do it, test my theory each time I got to the boss, and go from there. Here's how that went. No! No! I lost a jump! Dude. The second time I got here, I threw my grenade to clear out all of the signs in my tether, but I completely whiffed the grenade. This insane whiff stun-locked me. Due to the pure disbelief of how bad at the game I am, I was unable to mentally process moving out of the boss's attacks, and I got hit. The third time I got here, my tether expired right before I came out of invis to finish off the last few scions, so they were no longer suppressed and shot me right before I finished them off.
This is so lame, dude. Alright, whatever.
This wipe also brought up a great point. Someone suggested that when clearing the scions, I should abuse the pillars on either side of the room to hide from the boss. Since most of the scions should be suppressed anyway, they're not as much of a threat as the boss, so I should position to avoid the boss rather than them. After this, I was finally ready. It was finally time to beat this thing.
Come on! Come on! Woo! Yeah! Come on, man, let's go! Oh, yeah! Yeah! Holy shit! Shattered Throne without taking damage! Oh my god! Oh my god, dude! Oh, that's sick, dude! Let's go!
And that's how I soloed an entire dungeon in Destiny 2 without taking damage a single time. Now, I know what you're thinking. Shattered Throne is barely a dungeon. This looks way too easy. Why don't you do a real dungeon? Well, if you want to see me do a more difficult dungeon, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as soon as this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll start my Pit of Heresy attempts over on my Twitch channel. Have a good one.